Suddenly, he woke up with a start, consumed by fear. The moment he looked down, a scream escaped his lips. Instead of his real legs, he now had mechanical legs attached to his body. Furious and terrified, he kicked the door so hard that it shattered into pieces, and he ran out into the street. The people outside immediately pointed weapons at him, but at that exact moment, he felt a strange, overwhelming power flowing through his new legs. In a single instant, he covered hundreds of meters. His speed was so incredible that even bullets couldn't catch him. His name was Nic. Until a few days ago, he was a student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He was at the top of his class in his studies and an expert hacker. From astronomy to geography, there was almost nothing he didn't know. But since childhood, he had suffered from a leg ailment that forced him to walk with the help of crutches. That day, he was on a road trip with his girlfriend Haley and his friend Jonah. They were helping Haley move her belongings. Suddenly, in the afternoon, he received a message from a mysterious hacker. They had been clashing online for a long time, but this time the hacker had directly hacked into Haley's laptop and was monitoring their every move. He immediately began tracking the hacker's location. Jonah suggested they should find the hacker and teach him a lesson once and for all, but Nic's mood was already ruined. Inside, he felt that Haley wanted to leave him because of his condition, and that this trip was just an excuse for a breakup. Filled with anger, he set out to find the hacker, no matter what. Along the way, the hacker continued to provoke them by sending photos of their car taken by traffic cameras. The GPS location finally led them to an isolated cabin in the middle of nowhere. Nic and Jonah went inside and began searching the place while recording everything. Suddenly, Haley screamed from outside. The moment he ran out, he saw her floating up into the air. The next second, a blinding white light flashed directly in his face, and he lost consciousness. No one knew how much time had passed after that. When he finally opened his eyes, he was sitting in a wheelchair, and his entire body was completely numb. A man wearing a hazmat suit was sitting in front of him. His name was Paulus. He told Nic that he would help him recover his memory. Paulus explained that they had come into contact with extraterrestrial life forms and might have been infected. The doctors continued to interrogate him for many days, but Nic couldn't understand anything of what was happening there. He wanted to see Jonah and Haley, but no one would tell him anything about them. Then, one morning, while he was being taken to the doctor, he suddenly saw Haley lying on a bed inside a room. He wanted to see her, but they wouldn't allow it. After that, he returned to his room, and once there, he heard the voice of his friend Jonah coming from another room. He called out to Jonah and said, "I saw Haley today, but they wouldn't let me see her. Plus, I can't feel my legs." Jonah told him that they had given him some kind of drink and that, after that, his heart didn't feel normal anymore. Now, both decided they would share with each other all the information about whatever they saw around them. Following this, Nic began to observe every little thing around him. He watched carefully to see which code opened each door and which people were allowed to speak with them. Once again, the doctors called Nic in to meet with them. They placed several objects of different shapes in front of him and tried to evaluate his understanding of shapes and colors. But Nic refused to answer anything. He said, "Until you let me see Haley, I won't tell you anything." Because of this, the doctors were forced to take Nic to Haley, but it was useless because she was in a coma. After that, Nic returned to his room and began telling Jonah all of this, but suddenly Jonah's voice stopped coming from the other side. At the same time, experiments were also being conducted on a cow in that facility. Then, suddenly, the lights went out and someone escaped from the facility. Nic also went and hid inside a dark bathroom. When the lights came back on, two people dragged him outside. Here, Nic noticed very deep gouge marks on the walls. After this, he went to the doctor and asked where Jonah was. The doctor told him that Jonah had never been brought there at all. Nic said, "That's impossible. I could talk to him." The doctor didn't say anything in response. Now, when Nic returned to his room, he kept calling out to Jonah and trying to speak with him, but there was no response from the other side. From this, it became clear that Jonah had escaped from that place. Therefore, Nic decided that he would escape from there with Haley. During all these days, he had written down all the codes and memorized every route by which he could leave that place. He began to escape with Haley, and just as he reached the final door, the doctor suddenly appeared there and caught him. After that, Nic lost consciousness. When he woke up, he saw that he was lying on a bed right next to Haley. Before he could touch her, the staff there grabbed his hand. Haley became unconscious again. Now Nic began to fight with the staff of the facility, and during the struggle, he fell off the bed. Because of this, the staff panicked and ran out of the room. Nic then noticed that his real legs had been amputated and replaced with robotic legs, and that he was now actually able to walk. These robotic legs were incredibly powerful, and using their strength, he kicked the door open. Whoever crossed his path, he attacked them as he kept moving forward. Haley was also with him. Then, while they were going down in an elevator, the doctor approached Nic and said, "If you go out there, the aliens will be a danger to you. You should stay here." But Nic didn't listen to the doctor. Passing through a long tunnel, he finally escaped the facility. The moment they stepped outside, Haley also regained consciousness. Both looked around and realized they were in a barren, desert area where absolutely nothing was visible for miles around. Continuing on, both finally reached a highway where a car appeared. They waved it down for a ride. Inside the car was an elderly woman, and she agreed to take them. But after traveling a certain distance, the old woman began saying strange things. Then, suddenly she stopped the car in the middle of the road and began laughing out loud in a very creepy way. Both Nic and Haley got scared and quickly got out of the car. There was a gas station nearby, so Nic took Haley to that place. He had her sit in a truck while he himself tried to call home using a telephone there, but it was useless because the phone was broken. Right then, he noticed that the truck near which he had seated Haley was driving away from the scene. Haley was also inside that truck. Nic immediately understood that the truck driver worked for the doctor and was taking her back to the facility. Because of this, he began chasing the truck. The shocking thing was that he was running extremely fast due to his robotic legs. Just as he got close to the truck, the driver opened the door and knocked him down. But now Nic wanted to bring Haley back at any cost. So once again, he began chasing the truck. Even though the truck was moving at high speed, he managed to catch up to it using his new robotic legs. Inside the truck, Haley found a gun, so she held the driver at gunpoint. Then, they threw the truck driver out and escaped with the vehicle themselves. After traveling a very long distance, they finally reached a dead end where the road finished completely. Because of this, they were forced to turn around. But then Nic realized they were heading right back toward the same highway. At that moment, they noticed a visitor center nearby. When they went inside the visitor center, they found a map of the area. From the map, they discovered that there was only a single road in the entire area. Nic couldn't understand any of it, and meanwhile, Haley's condition was getting worse and worse. Therefore, both decided to stay there for the night. That night, while they were inside the building, the doctor's men suddenly arrived. Nic and Haley began to hide from them. While hiding, they suddenly saw that their friend Jonah was also there, the very same Jonah who had escaped from the facility earlier. Jonah's hands had been completely transformed. In other words, he had been given robotic arms in the same way Nic had robotic legs. That was why, when Jonah had escaped the facility earlier, very deep marks had been left on the walls. Nic also noticed that the exact same number written on his own arm was also written on Haley's neck. Jonah said, "If you add up this number, the total is 51. That means we are in Area 51, where scientists conduct new experiments, and they are experimenting on us too. That's why they replaced your legs and my arms. To them, we're nothing more than test subjects, like rats inside a laboratory." Now, after the doctor's men left the area, the next morning they moved forward once again in a truck to escape this place. After traveling a certain distance, they noticed a checkpoint ahead. Although they tried to force the truck through, the military trapped their truck using a massive pillar system that could only be lowered through the operating system. Now Jonah got out of the truck and reached the room where the laptop was located. But before he could lower the pillar, a bullet struck his glasses, causing his vision to blur. This meant he could no longer enter the code or hack the system. Because of this, he was forced to step outside again. Then, using the immense strength of his robotic arms, he smashed the pillar to pieces completely. After this, Nic and Haley managed to escape from there, but Jonah stayed behind. He had already taken several bullets. Seeing Jonah's sacrifice brought tears to Nic and Haley's eyes. Now, they continued moving forward continuously, and finally, a massive bridge appeared in front of them. But standing right in the middle of the bridge was the doctor. Before their truck could reach him, the doctor's men threw something onto the road that popped the truck's tires, causing the vehicle to flip over. Now, because Haley had been severely injured, she lost consciousness. At that very moment, a helicopter arrived and took Haley away with them. Nic was also badly injured, but with all his might, he stood up once more. It was then that his attention turned toward the doctor's name tag, which read Damon. In reality, the doctor's name was Damon, and when Nic read it backward, he realized it actually spelled Nomad, the very same hacker who had sent them the mysterious messages and who had hacked their university server, blaming Nic and his friend. Now, the doctor finally admitted everything himself. He said, "Yes, I was the one who hacked your university's server and shifted the blame onto you and your friend. We also hacked Haley's system and sent you messages from her account. We provoked you so that you would finally come to us. Whatever condition your friends are in today, you are the one responsible." Then he revealed the truth, saying, "We use alien technology on humans. Of all the people we have experimented on so far, you are our best subject, the one who has completely adapted the robotic legs to his body and his brain. That means you are our most successful experiment." Hearing all of this made Nic extremely furious. Using the power of his robotic legs, he began running at an incredible speed toward the bridge. His speed became blindingly fast, and suddenly, he crashed into an invisible wall. Due to the impact, he broke through to the other side of the wall. When he looked behind him, he saw the doctor standing there. The doctor took off his helmet, and now Nic realized that he was not a human being at all, but was actually a robotic alien. After this, Nic looked forward and saw outer space. At that moment, he understood that he was no longer on Earth, but inside an alien spacecraft. The spacecraft number was also 23,541, exactly the same number that was written on his arm and on Haley's shoulder. This meant it had never been about Area 51. Instead, it is an alien vessel belonging to robotic extraterrestrials, and they are testing their technology on humans. With this, the story of the movie comes to an end.